everyone. I can see people trickling in. We'll wait for a couple of minutes more so that everyone's here and then we can get started with the session of the day.
Welcome, welcome.
Please post, please show us some love with all the emojis that you're putting in the chat. Awesome. Great. Thank you everyone for joining in. I hope you're all having a great time on day 3 of TestMu conference. I'm Kavya. To start off with, do share about your favorite session or snippets and learnings from this session on social media with the hashtag TestMuConf so that we can select winners and give away prizes. So do show us your love and support on social media throughout this session. I'm thrilled to introduce the session. Today, we are diving into the topic, the language of quality, elevating your communication to drive excellence in QA teams. Let me introduce you to our speaker, Erika Chestnut, who is the head of quality at 𝐊𝐞𝐲. Erika's leadership is all about building strong relationships. With over 20 years of experience in the tech industry, ranging from application development to establishing new quality departments, she's been a powerhouse. Her mission is to help leaders and organizations cultivate teams and cultures that are engaged, empowered, and enthusiastic. Through this session, you will understand and leverage your unique communication skills, particularly through the DISC model, transform everyday interactions into powerful tools that drive a culture of quality. So let's get started. Please join me in welcoming Erika. Erika, over to you.
Hey there, hey. All right, let me get this presentation turned back on. All right, hopefully everybody can see the screen, and let's get into it. So we're going to talk about the language of quality and elevating your communication to drive excellence in QA teams. Slow, quiet, disengaged, not proactive, not driven, lacking initiative, overly cautious, gatekeepers. Any of this sound familiar? Feeling a little down? I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to kick off that way. These perceptions often come from outcome-focused leaders that place a high value on fast-paced results. Not a problem. Of course, this is valuable, right? But these leaders are goal-oriented and they're energetically motivated to achieve these goals, and that pushes out through others. And when others are not meeting those expectations, these type of leaders can get pretty frustrated, right? They can be a bit impulsive, they can be overconfident, and they might even overlook key details that could actually save the day. All right, hey there, hey. As we said, my name is Erika Chestnut, and I would like to welcome you to the Personality Playground for Testers. I am a certified Maxwell Leadership Coach. I'm a certified DISC consultant, and I have 20 plus years of quality leadership, coaching, and just overall quality championship. So going back to these styles, these DISC styles, both of these styles, QA's focused, detail-oriented approach and leadership's high energy, results-driven mindset, both bring incredible strengths to the table. But each style doesn't always recognize their own struggles, risk-averse, impatient, and that's where the trouble can surface. Ineffective communication isn't just a problem between these styles. It's a serious issue that's costing companies serious money. In fact, according to Niagara Institute's 2024 report, ineffective communication is costing companies, yours included, a collective $2 trillion per year. At an annual $15,000 per employee just across the United States, that works out to roughly 132 million people out of the 165 million people employed in the US. To further provide data, that means that this is about 80 to 81% of all employees that are navigating ineffective communication. This means it's you or you adjacent, okay? So I want you to imagine a QA team that's embedded within a fast-moving development group, sprinting through an agile cycle. I'm sure for most of you, this is not hard to imagine, right? However, QA folks have become the gatekeepers of quality. They're testing every feature, they're running every scenario, and they're making sure that nothing slips through the cracks. They're meticulous, they're cautious. Some may say even overly at times. However, their past experience has taught them that if something goes wrong after a release, it's going to come back and bite them hard. And here's the rub. While QA is carefully ensuring that everything is solid, leadership is still chomping at the bit, eager to push the product out the door. They're focused on speed, market impact, and seizing opportunities before the competition does. To them, the QA team's thoroughness sometimes feels like a roadblock, something that's slowing down the momentum. They start questioning the timelines, wondering why it's taking so long, and pushing for quicker turnarounds. On one side, you've got a team that's risk averse for good reason. They've seen what happens when things go wrong. On the other side, you've got leadership that's ready to take those risks, driven by the need to move fast and stay ahead. But here's where things get interesting. These two perspectives don't actually have to be in conflict. In fact, there's a huge opportunity here to leverage the strengths of both styles. What if instead of seeing it as QA is too slow or leadership is too reckless, we found a common middle ground? What if we use strategic, data-informed risk-taking as a way to align these approaches? By integrating the thoroughness of QA with leadership's desire for speed, we can make smarter decisions. This means taking calculated risks, ones where we're confident in the trade-offs because we've done the analysis, but we're also ready to move forward without getting bogged down. It's about embracing the strengths of both of those styles to create a dynamic that drives high performance and quality without sacrificing either one. So today, we're actually going to explore how to make this happen. Less about the actual strategy of those things, but like how to encourage this culture in your organization, how to align these natural instincts, turn potential conflicts into opportunities, and drive your teams towards faster, smarter, and more confident decision-making. So I've been talking about these styles, right? And you're probably wondering, like, what the heck is that? Well, I'm going to walk you through how understanding and using different communication styles with the help of the DISC model can help make work a whole lot smoother. We're not talking about better conversations or just talking about better conversations. We're not just talking about transform. We're talking, more about how to transform and how we connect and collaborate. So that this allows everyone to be on the same page and we all win. And I've also got a little handy framework at the end that I'll share with you, something you can take back and put into action like tomorrow. Sound good? Okay, great. I'm going to say yes. Great. All right, DISC. If you have never heard of it, thanks for the thumbs up. I'm watching you all. I appreciate you. I'm seeing the chat come through, so keep it up. If you've never heard of DISC, it's like a cheat sheet for understanding how people tick. It's a way to read the room. It's a tool that breaks down human behavior into just four primary styles: dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. And DISC isn't just about personality quirks, right? It's about how we communicate, how we make decisions, how we process communication, and how we work with others. It's like having a map that shows you why your boss loves bullet points, while your QA team thrives on detailed spreadsheets. And when it comes to quality assurance, where precision is literally the name of the game, understanding these styles is so helpful. It's more than helpful, it's essential. Imagine being able to tailor your communication as a quality professional based on how someone else processes the information. Our world is all about accuracy, details, and getting things just right, but those details can sometimes be a burden for others. When you know your team's DISC style, you can elevate their performance, reduce misunderstandings, and make sure everyone's speaking the same language. or a language that everyone can understand, especially when you're trying to align with leadership. So let's talk a little bit about these styles. In a recent deep dive into over 150 QA professionals, we found something really interesting. 80% of them scored high in compliance. Shocker, right? If you think about what compliance in this sense is, it's detailed, it's accuracy, they're detail-oriented, they treasure perfection. These are the folks who triple check every detail, make sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and then goes back and does it again. Sounds like us, right? They're totally the backbone of quality, ensuring nothing slips through the cracks. And that's not all. That's not all. Those respondents also in that 80%, many of them also showed high levels of steadiness. These are your go-to people when you need consistency and reliability. They're calm under pressure, they're steady as a rock, and they keep things moving smoothly. Now, again, some trickiness. While these traits are fantastic for QA, hello, precision and reliability, they can sometimes clash with the more dominant and influential styles that are actually often seen in leadership roles. Leaders who are high in dominance are all about quick decisions, getting straight to the point. And those with high influence, they're big picture thinkers and enthusiastic visionaries. You want to know a little secret? Both of these styles can tend to yawn when overloaded with too many details. Details that us QA folks absolutely love. Okay? DISC is the language of people watching. Who doesn't love to watch people? I mean, think about it. You go to the mall, you're people watching. You're sitting waiting at the doctor or waiting for the movie to start. You're totally watching all of the people walk into the movie theater. Sometimes, is it just me? You get there early just to see other people walk in and just observe them, right? Let's dive into an overview of the different styles. We won't spend too much time here, but I want to give you a snapshot of what some of the similarities and differences look like across just these 4 styles. So when we look at DISC, you have D, I, S, C. Again, D is dominant, I is influence, S is steadiness, and C is compliance. 8 out of 10 QA are in that S and C column. And if you notice, like their character is defined as sensible, balanced judgment, right? We have fears of conflict and failure because we want things to be done with excellence. So criticism is a challenge. We're motivated by stability and expertise. We have a focus on people and the steadiness factor, and that C lane is focused on task, very task oriented. Now this is where it gets a little tricky too. Our pace is slow or slow and measured, which is a little bit slower than slow sometimes. And under pressure, we can become more steadfast, wanting to slow things down even further and have less change, or we become more systematic and focused on details and rules. Now, if we look at D and I, remember, this is a lot of our leadership roles sit in these buckets of D and I. It doesn't mean that there are not S and C styles that are in leadership. There are. But a lot of times where we see conflict at times is when we are navigating conversation or communication with leaderships that are sitting in the D and I, which is a juxtaposition to the quality team that is often, again, that 80% in the S and C. Yes, we see how fast can cause all kinds of bugs. And that is part of the challenge, because leadership is saying, but we need to go fast. We need to take risks. We need to keep going. Okay, not all of the bugs are a big priority, right? And so they're responsible. A D is responsible, but they're looking at, I'm responsible for an outcome. And I is poised. And I is all about sunshine and rainbows and social butterfly a lot of times, right? A D, their biggest fear is being taken advantage of. Are we moving slower because you're just being slow? Are we moving slower? Like, are you doing everything that you can? Are you being overly cautious? Are you being gatekeepers? Are you really thinking about the business outcomes? They don't want to be taken advantage of. They want to know why the decision is being made and that it's the right, so that they can determine for themselves if it's the right decision. They're motivated. D is motivated by significant. Their focus is task-oriented. Their pace is fastest, right? Or like, however we can get there as fast as we can. And under stress, they become more assertive, needing to engage in more confrontation. And then for I, because of Gen AI, sorry, I got lost with that one. With I, they're poised, they fear rejection, they're motivated by freedom. So with the stricter rules of quality, like we need to test, this is how much we need to test, and we can't move forward without that, they can kind of struggle. They are people focused, but their pace is much faster than an S and a C. And under stress, they become more optimistic and outwardly social, but that optimism may result in them saying, oh yeah, we can get this done, without talking to the quality team. We can get this done in this time frame, and they haven't necessarily spoken to the quality team. So what you can see here is that DI, right, and the difference in their fast versus ST slow. But if you look at IS, they're both people focused, but there are some differences, that fast pace versus slow pace. The I wants to slow down under stress. The S may be more optimistic and may speed up. Not intentionally, not to harm, but that may be the natural response. Okay. So what happens when the meticulous world of S and the S and C runs into the fast-paced, results-driven universe of D and I? On one side, you've got your QA team, the detail-oriented perfectionists who live by the mantra, measure twice, cut once. They're the ones who want to get it right the first time, leaving absolutely no room for error. This means that it might take a little bit longer to deliver because they're making sure that every single thing is just right. But here's, again, some trickiness, right? The leadership team, often, again, dominated by D&I, is all about progress over perfection. They're the folks who say, let's get something out there, we'll fix it if we need to. They value the speed, quick wins, and moving fast to capitalize on opportunities. But when things do go wrong, that same D is real quick to point fingers. And suddenly the QA team, who was trying to assure everything was perfect, finds themselves in the hot seat being asked the absolute dreaded question in the chat. What is the one question that we absolutely hate being asked? Anybody? Yes, Amanda, why didn't you catch this? Well, it is such a just horrible question, right? Because it puts all of it on our shoulders, and we were being pushed in a lot of ways to move faster and allow for more risk, right? So for the S and C types, this obviously creates a really uncomfortable environment. The S types create peace and security. They want everything to run smoothly and hate conflict. And the C types, they have a deep-seated fear for being wrong or critiqued. They're the ones who double check their work to avoid any mistakes. So when they're in a situation where they're pressured to deliver faster, but then also face criticism if something slips through the cracks, it's like being caught between a rock and a hard place. Yeah, how long does it take is also a bad one. I worked with a company where a QA team was made up of those really incredible, diligent S and C types, right? And they were the kind of people who would rather take on an extra day to triple check everything than risk missing something critical. And the mindset was all about getting it right the first time, ensuring that when they gave the green light, everything was as close to perfect as possible. But the leadership team, they were classic D styles, always in a hurry, always pushing for results. They had this, of course, progress over perfection attitude, which, again, it sounds great, but when progress doesn't go as planned or didn't go as planned, they'd ask, they'd say, let's move faster, we'll fix it later. But if something went wrong, they'd be the first to then ask, why didn't QA catch this? And this was stressful for the QA team. The S types were inevitably uncomfortable because they hate being rushed and pressured, especially when they know they'll get blamed if something goes wrong. The C types were in constant fear of the criticism, knowing that any mistake could lead them to being called out. So what happened? What do you think happened? Okay, I'll tell you. The QA team started dragging their feet even more. They were taking extra time to avoid any possible errors because of the fears that they had, what they did not want to encounter, conflict, criticism. And this led to further delays, which frustrated the leadership even further. And it was just a vicious cycle. Leadership pushing for speed, QA pushing back for thoroughness, and both sides ending up dissatisfied. In the end, this communication gap didn't just delay one project, it created a culture of tension and mistrust. The QE team felt like they were being set up to fail, and leadership felt like their team wasn't moving fast enough. It's a classic example of how conflicting behavioral and communication styles can lead to big challenges in the workplace. So how do we bridge the gap? Right? We've talked about the challenges, the clash between detail-focused QA professionals and fast-paced leadership. How do we bridge the communication gap and get everyone working in harmony? We want to find common ground where both sides can meet, collaborate, and drive success together. The key is to remain calm. Communication isn't just about getting your point across. It's about making sure the person on the other end, not only understands, but is also on the same page and ready to act. The CALM framework is designed to help you do just that, create communication that's clear, effective, and aligned with everyone's needs. So let's break it down. First up, C, clarity, right? In the world of QA, where details matter, it can sometimes be easy to get lost in the weeds. And for a D and an I, those weeds, they want to run away. But when you're communicating, especially with leadership, you need to start with the most important information. What's the takeaway? What does the other person absolutely need to know right now? Prioritize that and make sure your message is always clear and concise. And then let them ask additional clarifying questions if they want to go a little bit deeper into the weeds, right? Next, set communication expectations. This is crucial. Are you going to send detailed reports weekly, daily summaries? Establishing these expectations up front helps to balance the needs of both sides. Whether it's QA, the QA teams, our teams need to want to cover all bases, or leaderships need to have quick, actionable insights. Setting those expectations clearly up front aligns across the team. So next up, we have A, adapt to the audience, right? We talked about these different styles, right? Not everyone processes information the same way. Again, an S and a C, especially a C type, really is going to ask lots of questions, because a C type wants to really understand everything to gain confidence. A D type is going to say, I don't want all of those details, I need the highlights. And the way that they process it, right, they're going to process details differently because they're looking for those highlights, versus the C is not necessarily looking for those highlights. They want the information so they can take the whole thing in and make a decision. So not everyone processes information the same way. A detailed report might be gold for a QA professional, but a leader who's juggling a dozen of things, it really could be overwhelming, and then it gets ignored or overlooked, right? So we want to tailor our communication based on who you're talking to. For leadership, think high-level summaries. Again, let them dive in where they feel they need to gain more information so that it's targeted and strategic for them. And this is where also flexibility comes into play. You want to train your teams to be adaptable in their communication style. It's all about meeting people where they are. Just don't go silent. Next up, we have L, leverage visuals and tools. Words are great, but let's face it, sometimes a picture really is worth 1,000 words, right? Use dashboards, visual summaries, and other tools to present detailed information in a way that's quick and easy to digest. This approach appeals to both the S and C types who value detail, and the D and Is who are looking for the bottom line. And don't forget about automation, and I'm not talking about test automation, surprisingly, right? Process automation can be a game changer. Automate routine updates so that key insights are delivered at a glance without bogging down the QA team in repetitive tasks, or bogging down the QA team because the leadership has come with a different request of how to report something, right? Because they're looking for new insight that they weren't necessarily looking for before. This keeps leadership informed and the QA team focused on what they do best, ensuring quality. Now, throwing in another, this can be tricky because building this can take some time. Building this process automation can take some time. And if necessary, time, and if necessary, you're looking at needing to get new tools in place or scrub data, fix data, and implement new processes. You want to refer back to the C, clarity, in the COM framework. Ensure you are clearly articulating what you need to be able to deliver and leverage visuals and tools going forward, and leverage process automation. Give them the value, the outcome, i.e., you will be able to gain insights from different position points whenever you want. But we first have to build or buy or solve for these things. Do you want this? This is the time, this is the cost investment to deliver on this, and this is the value you get. Get it succinct, let them make a decision, and then all of a sudden they're chomping at the bit to get it. Of course, there may be some rushing still on that, but at least they're eager to have these insights. Lastly, we have M, which is maintain open dialogue. Communication isn't a one and done deal. And you think that, like, well, duh, that's of course. But sometimes we will hand over everything that we have. And we're like, we gave it to you already. We've given you this story. We've given you this message. We've explained everything. It's right there in front of you. But again, they're lost in the details, or they're not looking at the details, or they're overwhelmed by the details, and so they don't see it. And so we have to make sure that we're going back, but also encouraging your team to ask questions, seek clarifications. That one, we are constantly missing that opportunity in communication and maintaining that open dialogue. We're missing that opportunity to gain those clarifications. Keep the conversation flowing. This reduces misunderstandings and keeps everyone aligned. Pro tip, this also demolishes the perception that QA is not engaged or proactive, because QA is front and center. QA is engaged in the conversation. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions and the silly ones too, because you'd be surprised how often I thought a question was silly, or maybe I missed it in the conversation, and it's met with, more often than not, wow, that's a great question. Let's walk through that. Oh, we didn't think about XYZ. We didn't think about this opportunity or this gap. Don't be afraid to ask those what you think are the silly questions, because they're 90% of the time not. And again, demolishing the perception that QA is not engaged, proactive, or understand the business demolishes all of that, because you are showing up in the conversation. Okay. So now that you've got the framework, let's talk about how to put it in action. It's actually very simple. Start with clarification. Before you hit send on the email or report, take a moment to clarify the core message. Read it again. You know how we want to dot our I's, cross our T's, and then double check that we didn't dot our T's and cross our I's? Clarify that core message. Get it succinct. Make sure it's clear. Make sure it's concise. What's the recipients need to know? Then adapt your approach. Think about who's on the other end and tailor your message accordingly. Look at your organization, look at your leaders, look at the people that you are you communicate with on a regular basis. What style do you think they are? Look at their emails, listen to how they're communicating. How do they position out? Can you meet them? Can you match them where they are so that they are able to hear the message more clearly and you are able to drive the outcome that you were looking for? Next, of course, leverage the tools and visuals. Don't just rely on words. Use those visuals and automation to enhance understanding and streamline the process. Combine them. Combine your visuals with a clear and concise core message. Here's a few bullet points. Here's a visual. Let me know if you need more information. That goes a long way. And finally, maintain open dialogue. Keep the conversation going. Ask the questions, even the silly ones. Invite feedback and be ready to adjust your approach as needed. All right, how are we doing on time? Okay. Understanding your team's personality is an absolute game changer. And of course, we are not talking about Do they prefer coffee or tea? Although that is important too, because, yeah, are you a tea person or a coffee drinker? Like, I think that says a lot about who you are, but we'll talk about that later. Hit me up. I'm talking about how to understand how they communicate, how they process information, and how they work best. Every member of your QA team has a unique communication style. Some of them are combined. Some people are an SC, some people are a CS, some people are an IC, some people are a DI or a DC, right? Everybody has their own unique style. Some are going to be all about the details. They're your compliance folks, again, the ones who live for accuracy. Others are steady as a rock, keeping everything running smoothly, but maybe not the first to speak up in a meeting. And then you've got your leadership that are often, again, dominant and influential, not to say that they are always. You can have a DS in leadership or an SD in leadership. There are tendencies and strengths and struggles that pull through from each of those styles. And they would still want things fast, efficient, and big picture, but they might have a different lean or a closer lean to understanding the speed of quality, right? How can you speak to them? They might be more of a champion than not. But here's where the magic happens. Understanding these different communication styles, you can start aligning your team's strengths with leadership expectations. Imagine the synergy when your team's meticulous reports actually hit the mark with leadership's need for quick insights. Or when your steady folks are given the time and space and security they need to thrive while still keeping up with the fast-paced demands of the project. How do you balance that out for them? You can, but knowing first is the key. It's like finding the key, the right key for the right lock. Suddenly everything clicks. Communication flows better, collaboration improves, and those lost in translation moments, they become a thing of the past. So if you're not already using the DISC model to understand your team's communication style, I highly encourage it. Seriously, it's not just some nice to have, it's a must have. If you want to bridge gaps, improve collaboration, elevate your QA efforts, and drive team performance. By tapping into these insights, you'll not only understand your team better, but you'll also be able to tailor your leadership approach in a way that actually resonates with them. And when that happens, trust me, you'll see a shift, better alignment, smoother collaboration, and a team that's not just meeting expectations, but exceeding them. Oops. Learn to speak with quality. Explore the DISC profiles and get to know your team on a deeper level. All right, really quickly, because I want to get to Q&A. I'm lost on time. So we've talked about the importance of understanding and aligning communication styles within your QA team. We dug into how those S and C communication styles with their love of detail and consistency can sometimes clash with the fast-paced, bigger picture demands. And more importantly, we explore the practical strategies to bridge those gaps with the CALM framework. Now, when you take time to understand the team's unique communication makeup and align them with leadership expectations, you set the stage again for better collaboration, smoother workflows, and ultimately more successful outcomes. Communication is all about perception. Communication requires intentionality, but it is impacted by perspective. Perspective is key. Effective communication is the foundation of quality. When we align our communication styles and bridge those inevitable gaps, we don't just improve how we work, we elevate our entire team's performance. Remember, it's not just about what you say, but how you say it and how it resonates with those around you. Get the communication right and everything else follows. Because communication isn't just a soft skill, it's a performance skill. All right, that is my time for today. But before I go, I wanted to share a free gift with you. You can download my DISC cheat sheet, which actually by style gives you strengths and struggles for each of the styles. And it will help you read the room better and be a better quality of champion. And plus, because I love to give big, download the guide and unlock 3 extra special bonuses that I won't tell you about until you download it. So there you go. All right. Well, thank you for your time today. So now go forth and speak with quality.
Hey, Erika, thank you so much. That was a very interesting session, and I can see that we have a lot of messages in the chat. Now on to questions. We've got quite a few questions as well. Let me pull one up onto the stage.
Okay.
So this is from Vincenzo, who want to know how can a lead manage a conflict in the team?
How can a lead manage a conflict? I'm assuming, gosh, are we talking? I'm assuming we're talking about a QA lead managing a conflict in the team. Well, it kind of depends on what the conflict is about, but I would start with if you can identify what communication style they have, right? Do you have somebody that's a D that's conflicting with a C? Again, as we've talked about here, understanding how they're communicating and how they're processing what the other person is saying that's creating tension, okay? Because that's part of it. The conflict comes from a miscommunication, and that has now turned into tension and frustration between the two because they don't feel understood and heard. So when you can peel away what they are, where that tension is coming from, you can then actually work on the problem, the root cause of it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Vincent, so you could probably let us know in the comments if Erika was able to answer that, but I'm pretty sure, yes. Next question is from Prachi, who wants to know what are some practical ways to apply these communication strategies in daily QA tasks?
Thinking about who are you about to message and how much are you about to tell them, right? It's like, I will write messages sometimes and I'll stop and think, okay, like if I wrote the message and I'm like, oh gosh, there's a lot in there. And there's a lot of bullet points and there's sub bullet points. Wait a minute. Who am I speaking to? How do they communicate with me? Does this person ask me a lot of questions? Then let me pull back some of the information, give them the highlights, and let them ask me questions. Like, here's what you absolutely need to know. One of the ways you know that it's surfaced is TLDRs. People will give that highline. That's really what it is. It's like, hey, listen, too long, don't read, but it's here if you want it. So giving people that space, I do that so many times. I'm like, here's the hot topic. And then if you want a little bit more, because I feel like there's maybe something else you need to know here, here's some stuff and you could take some time to read it. But this will grab your attention if you think it's important. That's one way to apply it. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. And then, yeah, absolutely. I think I'm not a QA lead. I work in marketing, but a lot of strategies that you just showed us would definitely be handy for others as well, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Bringing the next question up onto the screen. Yeah. So this is from Paul, who wants to know, since QA and testing prize the neutrality of data, where might emotion and communication have a seat at tables? And what are the best ways it should be expressed, especially if there is a negative feedback, I suppose?
Since QA and testing prize the neutrality of data, where might emotion and communication have a seat at the table? Emotion can always have a seat at the table. Ideally, it's not negative emotion or emotion that causes others to feel shame or less than in some way, or like they are wrong, right? You can convey emotion. The emotion itself can be neutral if you are not positioning it or pushing it on somebody else. I can be frustrated by where we are in our testing timeline, or the amount of testing that we have completed, or the quality of the product that was delivered to us to test. That's usually one of the things, right? And be frustrated. And I can convey that frustration. But if I am creating a space where I'm pointing fingers back, right? This is where they talk about blameless culture. When you do that, you're pushing your emotion off. And so it's no longer neutral. It's not just I am frustrated by the situation, let's address it. You create a space where you're putting tension between you and the other person, and now you can't collaborate. So it can exist, but the emotion should remain neutral to the issue itself and not the person that's maybe engaged in the issue. I hope I understood your question.
Yeah,
if I didn't, It's a very interesting question. So reach out to me on LinkedIn if I did not understand it clearly.
And I absolutely personally loved what you said about blameless culture. I think that's a great takeaway for all the attendees to take.
Thanks.
Great. Bringing up the next question onto the screen. So this is from Mahesh, who wants to know, how can we create a learning environment where team members are encouraged to share knowledge, ask questions, and continuously improve their communication skills?
Be curious. It starts with you. So if you recognize the value of communication, and this is why I said communication is not a soft skill, it's a performance skill. A lot, there's always been communication is a soft skill, it's a soft skill, soft skills are not that big of a deal. Whoop, nope, wrong, right? That's a big red flag. No. But it's a mindset shift that has to happen. And not everybody believes that, right? Not everybody thinks that. And so you want to present in a curious way. One of the things that I've had in my career is people say, how do you build rapport so quickly? And I used to always think that it was because I grew up overseas. I traveled a lot as a military child. And so I was thrust in new environments, and I just learned how to adapt and read people and be able to build rapport. And I do believe that is part of it. But learning DISC, becoming a consultant as part of this, the reason why I love it so much and advocate for it is because it really legitimately is a science-backed way to build that rapport. And so if you want others to prioritize and ask questions about communication, be the first person to prioritize and ask questions about communication. So if you find yourself in a tense situation, or you see it happening in a meeting, hey, I think that, maybe, Rob is really looking for he's worried about maybe some of the critique here, because in your mind, you're thinking Rob doesn't like criticism. And then Jason over here is a D and is like, listen, I'm trying to get this done fast and you're slowing me down and I don't understand why, and you can't hear it. And maybe you are sitting in the middle saying, I see it happening. And if you're curious and ask questions and you present it in a way that they begin to understand, you don't want to walk them down DISC, but asking curious questions about how we can improve this communication and this conversation, it then encourages others to change the culture as well. Great question. Brilliant. I loved it.
And great answer too, Erika. Thank you so much for sharing that. Awesome. Let me see if we have any other question that we can pick up as of now. All right, there's a question from Erika who wants to know, what are some common communication pitfalls in QA and how can that be avoided to ensure smooth project execution?
Yeah, it's overload of information. It's just too much information. One of the, no, you know what? It is too much information, but not tying it to business outcomes. Why are you sharing this information? Saying that, like, this is how much testing we did. This is what the coverage is. There's value in the QA organization because we're like, hey, listen, we have confidence in this release. And these are the things that we did to have confidence. But if you are telling that or saying that to an executive, CTO, he's like, okay, yeah, they are having to, he or she, are having to process the value of this data and where to apply it so that they can then communicate it out, aligned with any updates they have, or what does it mean to them. So you want to communicate things from a QA perspective, whether it be status, risk, those type of things. Make sure you're tying it to business outcomes that leadership can take and apply to their level of thinking, where they are looking across the organization. Take the processing and cognitive load of that off of them. Do it yourself and give it to them.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have a question from Viju who wants to know what strategies can help QA professionals leverage their unique communication styles to enhance team synergy and drive excellence.
Get a DISC assessment. I won't tell you that there may be a bonus that gives you access to that if you so choose, if you download the cheat sheet, but get an assessment. Learn your own communication style. learn what your disc style is. And that'll help you when you learn yours. It begins to unlock you. You're able to read others. You spend 5 minutes talking to somebody and you're like, I think you're probably an I. And you can change and tailor your communication to that. And then you can see it ebb and flow. And it's like, maybe you're like an S. You like a little bit of steadiness. Oh, no, you're a D. Okay, let's do this. Let me adjust, right? You begin to see it, and it's actually kind of fun on the back end in your brain.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erika, for this insightful session and the very interactive questions. And I've been going through the chat as well, and I can see that there is so many messages. I think you should take some time to go through it too at the
Yes,
end of
I
the
hope it doesn't go
conference.
away when we cancel. I'm like scrolling up now. Amanda,
Absolutely.
she's dropping gems.
Yes. And I'm sure attendees also found it very interesting. Everyone, please connect with Erika on LinkedIn as well as Twitter to follow her work. And if you haven't already, do share about the session on social media using the hashtag TestMuConf. We would love to see all your comments and takeaways from this session. I want to
Only if
remind
you're
all
saying
the
something
attendees
nice.
that yes, that is true. Only if you're saying something nice. Do tell us in the on social media whether how much you loved Erika's session. Yeah. And I want to remind all the attendees that all these sessions are recorded and will be available on YouTube's channel. So Learn to Test YouTube channel. So you can go back and listen to them again and share them with your peers. Once again, Erika, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, and I really hope to host you sometime soon. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
for
Have a
hosting.
great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.